Welcome to YouTooSpain. Welcome, my friends. This week I'll be asking our expert and lovely residentially, I'll put the right teeth in, residency specialist Chris from Upsticks, all about the Brexit Withdrawal Agreement residency renewals. That's the permanent residency for Spain in 2025. And yes, there could be up to, we reckon, 35,000 people renewing this year, Brits that is, and there's something they all need to be aware of. We'll also answer viewers' questions, and we have the answers to some frequently asked questions about moving to Spain. We've got the answer about whether EPREM has gone up, the money you need for the digital Nomad Visa, and there's one other thing as well. And finally, we'll be having one of our popular arguments, fun arguments about something very topical, and I believe we have some Upsticks goodie bags to give away as well. We'll find out about that later on in the show. And that's to whoever leaves the best comment or question. So get writing. You can do that on the live chat, or if you're watching the video back afterwards, do it in the comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Because you are a part of this too. That's what this channel is all about. And you're very welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's run that theme music. And of course, why not? Should we have a little dance? Ra-ta-ta-ta, ya-ta-ta-ta, here we are. And that was groovy, wasn't it? Speaking of groovy, let's meet my regular fortnightly expert guest. He's my best mate and yours. It's Chris from Upsticks. Hola, matey.
Hola, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing down there on the coast?
Yeah, a bit chilly as well, actually. And this morning it was, it's because it's clear skies, and it was chilly this morning when we went to bed last night. So, yeah, it's all nice.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Let's see who's on the live chat. We've got a few in today. We've got Roger Burke. Good morning to you both from a grey Torquay. That's supposed to be the Costa del Sol of Britain, isn't it? Paul Cook says, good morning, Skatz and Chris. Kev the Argonaut. Good morning, chaps. Get the mind bleach out, as I'm about to say. I'm watching this in the shower. Oh, lovely, lovely. And thanks for your message. Was it early on this morning or late last night? About the Still Alive blog. That's brilliant. I think we're going to have a special chapter in the book just for you, Kev. Get Me to Spain says, buenos dias a las dos. Anton cares, hola todos from 4 degrees in France. It's even colder in France then. Adam Farmelo, morning all. Pinch punch, first of the month, soon be summer. Yes, we had a different saying for that Ruth Collins Coburn and I have created, and I can't remember what it is. Ruth, if you're watching, tell us again, remind me. And beautiful and sunny today in Caceda, Get Me to Spain says, and hope you're well. Yes, very, very well, thanks. And Chris looks like he is too. Oh, and we've got Lisa Hibbert. Good morning to you. Lovely to see your name on there again. Have you got any shout outs, Chris?
Oh, what shout outs have I got? Yes, I have actually. To the Harding family, got their visas this week, who I know are always watching as well. We've got some good news with the visa. Well, good and bad news with the visas this week. I've still got to actually catch up with a few of my emails, but we had about 6 or 7 drop in. And Mick as well from Alarina Grande. Now that was a strange one because you're probably all going to know that at the moment the internet's going mad and everybody's going mad about the time it's taking for Manchester to process visas. Mm-hmm. It is, I know it's not today's subject, but it is horrific. I don't know what's going on. Since Christmas, it's just been nothing. So we've only had 3 since Christmas. One of them was nearly 5 months. Okay, but to be fair, there was a requirement letter and extra documentation required, and it was quite complicated. So normally those things do go on a bit. But we had just a standard, should we say, visa application, which we had the clients lined up for probably 12 to 14 weeks now. I'm going, look, with what's happened since Christmas, this is going to be longer. You're going to issue ferry. And it dropped in today, and it was 6 weeks. Sorry, yesterday.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on there at Manchester
Well,
at the moment?
well, we need a trip to Manchester to find out what's going on.
We need to get. Like, we haven't been on a lot. I've been, because my arm. I haven't been travelling, but I'm ready now to go. So I think we need to have a road trip and get some information again, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
On the ground.
Superb. Yes, we had. And John Carrington says, hi. Tony Reynolds, good morning from Belgium. Frosty here this morning. Very nice. And right then, well, let's get straight on with the show. It's main feature time. And that goes a little bit like this. We haven't done this for a while, have we? Here it comes. It's the main feature of the show. The topics in the title. Woo! That seemed to go really weird at the end, didn't it? Never mind. It's all technical stuff this morning. So, Chris, it's now 5 years on from 2020. Can you believe it? That's that wonderful year, which was lovely for everybody, wasn't it? 2020. That quite apart from COVID, it's the year that ended with Brexit on the 31st of December. It was a year of two halves, as the football commentators say. In the first half of the year, the process for confirming residency, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but it was different from the second half. And there was this huge rush for everyone to get sorted out before December 31st, possibly as many as 35,000 people. So before you explain the latest developments, take us back to 2020 briefly, if it's not too painful, and explain what was going on there.
Yeah, it was a crazy year. It was when we started, I think, was in with the lives as well, wasn't it? I can't believe it's 5 years already. So,
yeah,
it's great. It was all new then. And yeah, basically what happened back then, it was a crazy time post-COVID. So at that time, coming out of COVID, which was like the March time, I think, which was
23rd of March.
Yeah, with the initial COVID, because obviously it went on, didn't it? The following winter, it was a nightmare. But the first COVID pandemic, the police stations here we knew Brexit was happening, so many people were going to get their residency or declaring their residency. There've been people here living here, Brits who had at the time an EU passport who hadn't declared their residency. So it was a big rush, and we used to get the green EU residency card style card, which all EU members still get when they declare their residency in Spain. And then basically Boris Johnson announced it was going to be a hard Brexit. So if you remember, there's a series of like extensions, wasn't there, to the withdrawal agreement, blah, 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 blah. And this was around June time, I think. And he said, no, forget it. Whatever happens on the 1st of January, yeah, I know there's other significant dates, but the 1st of January, that's it. It's going to be out. There's going to be no extension to the withdrawal agreement. Forget it. After that, then Brits got pushed into a system which is run by the sub-delegations of the government who manage the general immigration law system. And basically, the withdrawal agreement was pushed into them because it's a very much, which is a third country national visa residency process, because the withdrawal agreement was definitely going to happen. Okay, then suddenly the Brits had EU rights, but were being managed by a third country person process, right? And that comes back to what we always talk about, is where you have stage 1 and stage 2. Whereas if you're third country national, you have to some way or another get permission to be in Spain. So that permission was taken away from the EU platform and was put onto the government here for them to grant it for people who still had rights within the withdrawal agreement. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm less confused than I was before, because you've explained it to me before, and I was not quite sure about that.
This cut-off line where people had a green card, and then at that point they also introduced the TIE card, so you could then exchange your green card directly for a TIE card and have an ID card as your declaration of your right to live in Spain within the withdrawal agreement. Or if you hadn't done the green card, it was too late at that point, you had to make an application on the government platform, which we call Mercurio, which is what we also use for the NLV renewals. We use it for EU family members, stuff like that. That is then considered by the government. They then send you permission. With that permission, you go and get your TIE card. Okay. Hence why there's people who have got now their withdrawal agreement residency with which originated with either the green card, which was the EU style card, or for later on after July 2020, they had to get permission, and they've got their TIE card using the resolution, as they call it, platform.
Excellent. I hope that's clear to everybody else now. I mean, the clouds have parted for me, so yeah, I've got it now. But put yourself a scratchy head emoji, one of those ones. I think that exists, and ask for some more clarity. Let's just answer Mark Griffith's question down here. He's applied at Manchester, waiting 13 weeks now. Any advice on, is it possible to get our passports back without stopping the process?
It depends, but yeah, it depends local. Right, okay, so let me tell you about our experience with getting passports back. Initially, they'll never let you retain your passport. They always ask you to go send the passport in. The Manchester BLS website actually has a downloadable passport retention form, okay, which they never allow you to use at the first appointment. We've tried, they don't let you allow you to do it in BLS. Now, we've had, out of the 3 clients who have attempted to get their passports back, okay, 2 have been told you're not even coming in, okay, they've approached the consulate directly, they've gone there directly, and they haven't let them in. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to get security to let you in. And then one of them did, and they took the passport retention form, they went in, they managed to get in, they spoke to someone at the desk, they retained their passport, and they actually sent them an email about 3 weeks later to get their visas.
Brilliant.
Turn back to Manchester, hand the passport in the morning, hang about. They didn't give them any guarantees they're going to give them back on the same day, but they ended up doing that. So at the moment, we've got a 33% success rate in that.
Okay.
So that's it. It seems to be very much on who you get on the door. One bit of advice I would have is that the security on the door only let people in who have got reason to be there, and that would be an email on your phone. Now, I know it's hard to get an email from the consulate, but say, for example, the consulate have sent you an email to say we require more documentation, then they would email that to you, and you'd have that and show them that as well. And it's advisable also to take it printed, I'm afraid, say the environment, but for some reason they like it printed, and that should get you into the door to do whatever you need to do. If you haven't got an email, it's a chance of filling out the passport retention form and seeing if they'll actually let you in or not.
Great. Let's just say quick good morning, Andy Aylmer. Good morning, gents, from a dry Leicester. Ooh, my old stomping ground. Mark Griffiths. Oh no, we just answered that one. David Tunmer. Yes, that's a nice good morning. Sunny here in Molina in the Malaga area. Ant and Kez say 32 viewers and only 6 thumbs up. Don't forget to put your thumbs up and like this broadcast. And Get Me to Spain says, we are so lucky. It was Feb the 1st last year when we submitted our NLV application in Manchester and got our passports with visas back in 23 days. Yeah, it was all right last year, wasn't it?
Well, I'm hoping that it speeds up. I mean, now we've got this. I mean, as we know, and if you look over the last 5 years, it's peaks and troughs with everything. And it's probably quite possibly the hardest question ever to answer. And it's the most frequent question that you get asked as a visa specialist is, how long is it going to take once I've submitted my passport? That's that. This is just that question. You're like, well, and you can only go on current circumstance. That's why when I do my weekly update things, I just tell you everybody what's happening at the moment. But London is working extremely well. Edinburgh also seems to have a bit of a backlog for some reason, and as we know, Manchester. We're just hoping that they do just pick up now. I don't know if they've just had a slow January or whatever, but really, there's they've had an avalanche. But it's just frustrating because it'd be okay if they just warned you it was going to be 14 or 15 weeks. Yeah. It says up to 90 days. They have 90 days. But if it goes over that, then that sends people into a panic. People then will contact BLS. People will contact Manchester, and if they're lucky enough to get hold of them, That causes a bottleneck because they're answering all these inquiries for stuff that they haven't done. There's still people at the front end applying. So, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, if they could manage people's expectations, it would be a lot better, definitely.
Exactly.
And get me to Spain. So special thanks to Chris at Upsticks for all our paperwork. So another well done amongst the thousands. So the question is, now the applications for the permanent residency you can get after this 5 years. How are those affected by these two different processes? Have you got to do something different?
Wow, this is good. This is what we've been researching all year. So if you look online, most people said there's definitely divided opinions between what is actually published, the information within the withdrawal agreement, what the various estanquerias and what the government are saying. And but there is some very good news on the horizon. That's great. Up until last week, we were still unsure whether it was the people who initially applied to the government were still going to have to apply to the government.
Okay, on Mercurio then.
On Mercurio, all right, because normally whoever issues your permission to stay in Spain would be the body that would have to renew it. Yeah. So, for example, if we're looking at golden visas, which we know what's going to happen with them, but they're still at the moment, digital nomad visas, highly qualified professionals, that's all managed by the Unidades de Grandes Empresas. So you'd have to go back to them to renew that. Yeah. The extranjerias, the comisarias, the actual police who manage the EU side of things. Okay. You go to them to get your permanent residency, very much like you will do very soon when you've been here for 5 years. And people on a non-lucrative visa have to go to the government because that's who issued. Okay, so you don't go through country of origin, but the government, the people who approved the visa, that's where you go. So in theory, it would make sense that if the government issued the permission for the withdrawal agreement, the resolution people, they would have to do it again. But last week, we had a meeting with the office, well, the comisaria, not with the government, with the comisaria, who have direct access to the government. And the week previous, we requested that they spoke to them because they didn't have a clue themselves how it was going to look, and said, we'd be back next week. I have to say, very, very nice lady there. And basically, she's told us this week that there will be no need for the resolution from the government, that even people who got the resolution will be able to go straight to the commissariat to renew their card, which is fantastic news for everybody.
Brilliant. That is going to save a lot of paperwork and Mercurio time.
Yeah, it will, because as much as, from our point of view, from a business point of view, evidently a two-stage process would bring you more business to do, really. We don't want an unstable two-stage process where no one really knows what they're doing. And the first time that it happened, what happened was, because no one really knew what the requirements, the first ones flew through. Then suddenly a month later, we were getting requirements for exactly the same files, asking for certain things which looked like it was on an EU platform and proved that they were effectively living in Spain. Then they did the same for the autonomos, and they changed their understanding of the withdrawal agreement law in Malaga about 8 times. So you're like, okay, this file has been approved. You always refer back to a file which has a guaranteed approval. You set up the next file exactly the same. They come back with a requirement letter saying this isn't good enough. You need to send us this. So it's like, yeah, okay. We know that the sub-delegations have an interpretation of the law, and we know, like with the NLV renewals, they're different depending on the provinces. But you can't work with something that changes on a monthly basis, which is what happened in 2020.
The year of madness.
It was a year of madness. So, so the good news is that it looks like this is what they've told us, is that they won't need to get a resolution. So all of you who went through this two-stage process, it'll be just straight to the police station now.
Brilliant. And a question that you answered just before the show to me was are you allowed to apply a certain number of months in advance, or what's the rule now?
Well, this is going to be a good one. So again, if you look at the Brexit information, it says 30 days in advance, you should be able to apply for your permanent card. If you look at various other websites and information and Facebook groups, there's people who have stated it's up to 60 days before, which is, I believe that's being confused with other visa platforms. And the comisaria, the lady here, this is in Vélez Malaga, in Fingerola, and the main one in Malaga, who you suppose sends the information to the rest of them, are convinced that you won't be able to do it until the card has expired.
Okay.
Because they say on their platform, very much like the EU platform, until the card's expired, it doesn't click over into automatically on their computer to a permanent card.
Okay. So does that mean you've not got a TIE card for a bit if you can only wait to apply?
Well, it means you're going to have an expired card for a while. Well, so you're going to have to say book an appointment after your expiry, which availability of appointments is going to be something we can talk about soon. Okay, book an appointment after your card has expired, which means you've got an appointment booked, an expired card, and then you'll go to that appointment and be able to renew your card. In theory, they say you've got up to 90 days after your card expiry to apply, though you're not going to lose your right within the withdrawal agreement. And as we've seen, again, this is something that's we've seen quite often, is people who have had the green cards for 6 or 7 years, who are still on the computer, haven't been kicked off, have come back and just got permanent residency cards straight away. So, you know, I don't think you're going to get kicked off after 90 days, but you shouldn't be walking around with a card which is expired more than 90 days.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when people are stopped to give their ID and they give their TIE and they go, no, that's an expired one. And
well, I mean, you know, rarely. I mean, unless you do anything suspicious like that, you would get stopped. But you know, things like banks are a pain. It's always our biggest bugbear with the NLV renewals is you never go smooth translation from expired card to new card straight away. It's always later, because they don't address the renewal until the expiry of the card. Sometimes we get the resolutions quite quickly after that, but you still got to go back and book the appointment, get your card. And then the banks, and I had a meeting with Sabadell this week about it. I said, but you're telling people they're going to block the account the moment the card expires, but the whole immigration process doesn't allow people to have a card which is straight after one that's expired. They have to go through this whole process. So you need to change that. You need to give them the 90-day allowance like everybody else does. And they were like, yeah, computer says no. But anyway, I got my point across, so I sleep well, but I don't think they took any notice of me.
No. So until the card expires, you can't go on the system and make an appointment.
You can make an appointment. So you can make an appointment anytime. I could make an appointment and my card doesn't expire till 2030. So you could, if you're judging the appointments. The good thing about the withdrawal agreement, people, is that if you know when your expiry is, you can go on the system and start to judge when the appointments are coming up. So that's good. You can actually do that. Yes, you don't have to have an expired card to make the appointment. What the comisaria said to us was, look, and she was very honest. She went, we're not going to know exactly until these start coming in, right? So I said, the first resolution that we can get. So unfortunately, we're going to have to line up some guinea pigs. And we're guys, it's okay. Already spoken to some people who are willing to take part in this. First resolution case that we've got, which is within 60 days. Okay, we're going to go anyway and see what their computer says. And they know that because they were like, oh, bring us one and we'll check it. And I'm going, okay, well, look, we'll prepare a 60-day case. We'll prepare a 30-day case. And if we know none of them work, it's all going to be expiry. So I take it we're going to find out if it was July, June. About May time, we'll be able to start putting people in to see if you can actually renew before. And that's when she knows if the computer's going to... It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it, this? You think they'd know, but...
Yes. So there's a few questions here. I might leave some of them until we get to the next bit, which is the viewers' questions. Let's see, but I'll say, Craig Halliday, good morning. Chicos from sunny Chile, Portaloa. Whereabouts is that? Oh, it's Almeria. Picked up our TIE cards this week from Almeria. Hooray. We'll have to start renewal process in 5 months. Boo. Has it taken that long to get your card?
Maria has done, yeah. I mean, our Maria appointments at the moment this month have been steady, but in other provinces like Jaén is just impossible at the moment. We've got 4 people trying to book appointments there. Huelva, that's impossible. Malaga, Almeria, and Alicante at the moment are okay, but yeah, Almeria's is taking that long.
Well, so Robert says, has the renewal process changed at all, Chris? Apologies if you mentioned this. Yes, good morning, Robert.
No, not really. With the new law that's been brought in on the 20th of May, the changes that they thought about the whole 4-year, 2-year, that's not happening. The renewals process and the frequency stays the same. The only thing that has really changed is that it's now 60 days before and 90 days afterwards when you're allowed to apply. And they've changed it to 2 months before and 3 months afterwards. And normally that means that it's the exact day of expiry that has to correspond with the exact date 2 months before. So if you've got February involved, it'd be less time. If you've got 31 days, you might actually earn a little bit, but you would never leave it to those extremes anyway.
Okay. I just had a discussion on underneath one of my videos about the difference between 3 months and 90 days. Because most of the time, if you take a group of 3 months, consecutive months, usually it's almost exactly 90 days. January, February, March this year is 90 days. But February, March, April, of course that's unless it's a leap year, in which case it's 91 days. And February, March, April and I worked them all out. I mean, most of them are 90 or 91 days after you go past February, because there's usually a 30-day drops in the middle somewhere. So yeah, but yes, it was an interesting discussion, and I said it's a bit pedantic talking about that in terms of EU citizens, because it was all under the can EU citizens stay a bit longer in Spain.
Okay.
Well, it's all kind of just pedantic because it's because they can do this and they can do that anyway. So
I think there's a lot of confusion now between EU citizens. We had a couple of EU residencies this week, and during the conversation, it came up. Everybody talks about 90 days. The only reference ever to 90 days is the EU residency law. She said the regime you have to register. Let's call it registering. You are obliged to register if you're going to be staying more than 90 days and living in Spain, right? But I think because there's so much hype around visas and stuff and Schengen, and the fact that people have got EU passports after the fact and haven't ever looked at that platform before, you have to just forget Schengen a minute, forget that, there's that confusion is still there now.
And everybody seems to use 90 days for 3 months, most of the time. Although I did put 3 months in the video script from quite early on, because I was quoting the actual regulations in the handbook for border guards, and but that's a Schengen thing anyway, the border guards. So yeah, they would say 90 days. Yeah. But it has caused, because there are lots of little 90-day sort of rules.
Yeah.
The length of time you have to wait for that you can apply afterwards for your cards and things like that. Yeah. Anyway.
And then you have the 90-day rule of, so for example, with the EU family members, they have to consider that if they haven't responded within 90 days, that your application has been rejected. But then when we approached them last year, because they were running up to the 10-11 week part, they said, can we consider these as being rejected now because you haven't? They said, oh no, you can consider it to be rejected until we respond, and once we've looked at the file, if it's favourable, then it'll be fine. Okay, so what do you tell clients? Well, you are currently under law rejected, but we've still got to wait until they approve it. Okay, that's
that's really helpful.
That's all I have to say. Basically what they're saying is they're really busy, they haven't got to it, so we're just going to ignore that part of the law.
Brilliant. Oh, Mark Griffith says, thanks for the reply. Chris, I've sent an email asking for passports back for a separate travel trip. I'm not expecting a reply, really. We have a villa to go to in Orihuela that we can't go to. That's a shame.
I'd say that probably, if I know it's a bit of maybe a mission to get to Manchester, but it'd be very, very strange if you got an email reply. But the only people who's ever managed to get their passports back has been directly with the consulate.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll come back to the question from Corinne C a little bit later on, but just take us through briefly what people need to do on the renewal and what documents they'll need.
So the good thing is, as well, at the moment, and we're going to see in other provinces, and as always with the community, tell us what your experience is, because we're doing as much as we can to find out from the provinces. But as we know, every province is different. Here in Malaga, at the moment, they're saying there's going to be no requirement for any proof of income and healthcare like there is with EU, which is very strange, because if an EU citizen actually switches from temporary to permanent, you still have to take those requirements with you and prove how you're supporting yourself in Spain, the fact you've still got healthcare in place. Okay, very rarely they ask you to go back 5 years. We always say have that prepared in case they do. But an EU citizen, when they've got the green card, which doesn't have an expiry on it, you just have to judge the expiry date, which is 5 years after the issue date, like you'll have to do, Skatz. You then go back to the police station and get your permanent card, which is exactly the same. It says permanent, but you have to produce documents to prove how you're supporting yourself in Spain. At the moment, both Vélez Malaga said to us there's been no instruction at all now to ask anybody. It's a form filling exercise, basically. Whether that changes, we don't know, because we knew our experience from the first time round is that every week it was a different story. Right? So we don't know. But at the moment, they're not actually requesting this. They reckon they haven't had the instruction yet to request this. That could come, maybe when the time comes. And we have done some permanent switches already from people who had green cards over 5 years ago, and they haven't asked. So that's good. And we've also got over that hurdle. I don't know if you remember, about 6 months ago, there's lots of people saying, I've gone with my TIE card, which expires in 2 years' time, but I've actually been here 5 years, and they've rejected my application for permanent residency. We've got over that hurdle now with Malaga. We're doing really well with them. They understand, they know what to do in the system. They have to essentially annul the old card and give you a new one, basically.
Brilliant.
There's a bit of a misunderstanding about how that process was working, but now they understand, and we've been working with them to do that. And in terms of the paperwork you need for it, well, you're going to need the application form correctly filled out. And if you don't know how to do that, I know a company that can help you. It's the EX23. Then you've got a model 790, which is your tax form, and you pay the European price, which is €12 on the tax form, not the residency renewal. It's €12 at the moment. That's what we've been using for the permanent people. And then obviously, if you've changed your address, you're going to need a Padron certificate, because you'd have to prove what your new address is. If you haven't changed your address, in theory, there isn't any need for a Padron certificate. Though we do know that the funcionarios, which are administrative staff behind the desk, do like to see one just to confirm your address. So I would always advise on taking one with you and make sure that's dated within 90 days. Then obviously an updated photo and your passport.
Brilliant. That seems easy. My next question was, are there any regional variations? But you've kind of already answered that. This is going to happen along the way, isn't it, when we find out?
I reckon we're going to have regional variations, and I reckon we'll have variations to the thing of what they're going to request during this process anyway. At least we did it. It happened the first time. I mean, I think Malaga seemed to be pretty hell-bent on let's keep it as easy as possible. But I don't see other regions maybe doing that. And it might be just because of supply and demand. I mean, here, moving on to the amount of appointments, we can't see if there's any provision to put any more appointments on, like the first time around where we had a special Brexit desk and Brexit appointments.
There you go. So that's covered those questions. Let's go on to Corinne C's question. This is an interesting one. I think I know the answer to it. Can pension income that one is not yet entitled to draw down on be used towards income for an NLV? For example, she's 51, not entitled to draw down on the pension until 55.
Do you mean the pension? No, so
she'll get a pension in 4 years.
Right, yeah, so any passive income that you're not receiving, you could not count towards the EPREM requirements. If you're not actually receiving that on a monthly basis, you wouldn't be able to use that as part of your, should we say, monthly EPREM requirement. If you've got a pension pot, okay, which is essentially an asset which you've got cash. Now, this is a very it depends question, because it depends who revises. Say it's an initial NRV application. It's the person who looks at your file in the consulate, whether they consider that to be a cash asset, which meets EPREM, which means if you have got a pension pot, we hate using pensions pots if it's the only asset you've got, because it's not exactly a cash asset, but it really is, because you can access it if you want. So depending on the structure of the pension, you'd have to prove the accessibility. And I would even go as far as to prove what you're, maybe you'd be taking a tax-free lump sum or blah, 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 blah. But you would definitely have to prove when and how much you could get of that pension in cash. Yeah, so they will accept cash assets which are wrapped up in a product, but you really have to explain it well. But in terms of the actual potential pension, no.
There you go. Alicante Explorer. Hello there again. Brilliant show. A friend moved to Spain just prior to Brexit. His work involves travel outside of Spain, so he's concerned that will impact applying for permanent residency. Does it? Thanks.
In theory, during the temporary residency period, he shouldn't have spent more than 6 months out in any year. In practice, have they been checking on that? Not at the moment.
Okay. So it's a little bit of an it depends there, but yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you've stuck by the 6-month rule, then you should be okay.
Yeah, if you stuck by the 100-year 6-month rule within temporary residency, you shouldn't have a problem. Have we seen it? I've seen people come in who haven't been in the country for 3 years with a green card and managed to exchange it for a permanent TIE card, you know, which could cause all sorts of tax liabilities and problems. But, you know, they've managed to declare their right within the withdrawal agreement, and they haven't, and no one's checked their passport stamps for the amount of time they've been out. So, you know.
John Carrington has an interesting point. Says EU nationals. I worked with NatPol. They accepted the green card automatically, became permanent after 5 years. I believe the legislation says may renew the temp certificate after 5 years.
I work with NatPol. Yeah, so yeah, your green one should automatically after 5 years. Well, you have to go. You're referring to the fact that you are EU national, yeah, and you're going, and green card automatically became permanent. Yeah, it does automatically become permanent, but you have to wait for the 5-year expiry, and you still have to present the requirements that they request. Yeah. Is that right? Am I missing something there?
No. I think that's right. So technically, you are permanent resident automatically by EU law, but you still have to do bits of paperwork and present and get your new card.
Oh yeah, so yeah, automatically, yeah, but then you've got the as we know in Spain, yeah, technically after 5 years, yeah, automatically you do, but you still have an administrative process to go through, of which they'll require proof of a certain amount of documents, you know. So
I'm hoping that I think it's 2027, which is when I'll begin. I think it's January 27 when mine will renew, because we didn't actually get my paperwork done until very early in 21, I think. Oh no, 22, because it was 21 we moved here. What was I going to say? Yeah, I'm talking about the EU have been saying that everybody should be given the proper cards, like a TIE card instead of the floppy green cards. That's what EU countries are supposed to be doing, but whether they do or not, don't know whether all of the countries are going to do that, or whether Spain's going to do it. But that is supposed to be happening in 2027, I believe.
I haven't seen that.
I would love it to happen. Hope it's not just a rumour.
Yes, I thought that ID cards had to be issued if you're EU by the country of origin. So, i.e., if you're French, you get a passport French ID card. Like Brits never had them. So like the likes of people from Belgium, France, get ID cards because it's part of because they're EU. They've got freedom of movement, so all the ID is issued by their country of origin. Whereas for people who don't have freedom of movement, third country nationals, they have to have an ID card from where they've declared and got permission for residency. Hence why the cards say permission. But it would be good, for people here. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. T. Spear says, is EPREM increasing this year? We'll answer that one shortly in the next section of the programme. Well, let's finish the feature there. There's nothing else to say, really.
I'll just try to find your residency card, see if I can tell you exactly when you're going to renew.
Yeah, I think that it was something like the 4th or the 5th of January when all the paperwork came through. Would that be the date they'd go from, or would it be?
No, the date that me and you went to the appointment.
Oh, in that case, that would be November or December, I think, maybe.
Yeah, November or December. So I can remember it was cold, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was,
not for me. It didn't feel cold to me. It only just arrived from Ireland.
I'll tell you, it'd be definitely So I think you'll be 26 though. You're 2021. I think you're in yours 26 next year.
Yeah. I thought it was January 22 when it came through, but yeah, that's when the paperwork came through. But yeah, so the end of 2026. It's good to know.
You might be thinking of Liz's because you remember that we had to do that afterwards because you EU family member. Yours was first, wasn't it?
Yeah. Hers is in the first few days of January, I think. Maybe the 5th. I think it's King's Day or the day before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that is that's the end of that feature for this week. Smash that like button into smithereens, everyone, and especially if you've got some information you need from today's topic, which I presume lots of you have. And while you're here, make a note of Chris's website, upsticks.es, which has been almost on screen. It just says upsticks.e on the poster behind you. And you can find articles on there about everything to do with visas and residency, and also moving your car to Spain. And eventually we'll have Chris's wife Lara on the show talking about that, because she's the boss of that now.
She is, yeah. I don't get involved in the cars anymore. Lara's the boss.
There we go. So let's just do the Ask Us Anything feature, which goes like this. Ask us anything you like, as long as it's to do with moving to Spain or living here. Thank you. Or living here. Thank you. Yes, they all seem to be freezing just before the end there, but never mind. Little technical issue. I'm going to sort that one out. It's because it's cold. Everything's freezing. And so, ask us anything. We've already answered quite a lot of your questions. Richelle's on. Hello, good morning, Chris and Skatz, she says.
Hey, Richelle.
And
what's it like at your end? How cold is it up there?
Yes, you're in one of the new towns, aren't you? Yeah, tell us all about that. John Carrington says, police accepted one didn't need to renew the card, as the EU process is that it automatically became permanent after 5 years. Yeah. We have absolute right to live here. P.S. I'm Irish. Me too. So, do you not need a card? Do you not need to do the paperwork?
You still need to go and get a green card that says permanent on it. Yeah. Your temporary card, it says temporary residency. That lasts for 5 years. You have to go and swap that for a permanent card after 5 years. Albeit your temporary card doesn't have an expiry on it. Yes, it automatically clicks into permanent, but the administrative process is that you should go back and get yourself a permanent card.
Great stuff.
But you wouldn't be kicked out. You wouldn't be kicked out because you're an EU citizen. So if you don't do it, then it's an administrative process. Imagine you went back and they went, oh, we haven't got you registered after 7 years. You go, okay, well, I'm here, I'm living, I've got money, I've got healthcare. There you go, I have an EU card. But, in theory, you're supposed to go back and do it.
Yeah. I'd prefer to have, even if it's just a little floppy one, I'd prefer to have that card in my wallet just in case.
And don't laminate it.
Don't laminate it. Yeah.
I've actually been in a police station in Montreal where they went to the client, when you leave, laminate it. And I went, what's that? Don't listen to the police. Don't laminate it, please. Don't laminate it.
I've got one of those wallets where it's got a plastic window,
Right.
and my card's been sitting next to it with the laminate. There is laminate on the is it on the back of the card? It's not on the front of the card, which is silly. So if your wallet gets hot, some of the print from the card can stick to the plastic bit where the window is if you're not careful. I know I've got some kind of little imprints of parts of my card on that thing now, but it's still readable, fortunately. So
that happened to a client of ours who left his wallet on the dashboard. And he pulled it out. He literally said, as I'm pulling it out, I saw the letters coming off.
No.
It's okay. We've got a replacement for him. And the police had actually a good laugh on it. You know, they were saying, he said, these are naff. You know, they punch them out the holes, don't they? You get the big one. Well, at least we don't have a big certificate. We used to have the big green one, didn't we? It was like huge.
Yeah, that was before my time. There we go. And Kez say, in France, you can only get an identity card if you're a French citizen. Oh, that's interesting. But you can get a TIE.
If you're third country national, you get TIE. It looks very much like our TIs. We do quite a few, and believe it or not, we've done quite a few NLVs through France. People who have temporary residency in France but want to move to Spain, so they can't qualify for the permanent EU switch, and etc. And you get a temporary card very similar to what you get on an NLV in Spain.
Rochelle says everything's white and frozen up there, so frosty. Yes, because you're inland quite a bit, aren't you?
The other side of the mountain, beautiful part of the world. I do like it up there.
Yeah. We were seriously looking at living in that sort of area, which is very handy for Malaga because you've got the big motorway that goes and curves on round to Granada, so you can get to Loja and Granada and anywhere you want, and quickly get to Cordoba and Seville from up there. So,
and Antequera on your doorstep.
Yeah. I've still not been there. Liz popped in to look for, look at houses, I think.
Road trip, and there you go. It's a road trip.
Yeah. Maybe that should be the first one. The places that I didn't get to. Yeah. El Davido says, Chris, looks like you have a nice view there. I can vouch for that. Yeah, it's lovely.
Can you see my Christmas present in the background? That's my greenhouse.
It just looks like a glowing white. It looks like some kind of alien building from here. It's just glowing.
I only put it together yesterday, so I've got a new sort of polyurethane greenhouse. So I'm going to start doing my chilies early this year.
Oh, fantastic! Do some of them Jamaican ones again. They were.
Oh yeah, I've got some seeds ordered, and I've got some that I'm going to. That's going over in the corner, so I'll have the. I've got all sorts. I want to experiment with. We're going off topic a little bit, but growing. Like smaller, like I want to do some like bonsai type stuff and chilies, and so I don't know if it'll work, but there you go. That's what I asked for Christmas.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. And John Carrington says, incidentally, until the 2nd of April 2007, EU nationals had a residency which was plastic with fingerprint and photo. Interesting. Do you remember them? You were here.
I did my very first card. My very first card I got in 2000. I had to give all 10 fingers or 4 fingers, 2 thumbs, if you want to say, ink, and your forefinger was on the back, and it looked like something you'd made up in the library. This card that you got,
fabulous. Yes. Craig Halliday says we arrived in Spain September last year. What would we need? When would we need to fill out a Modelo 270? Was that tax form?
Before March this year, I believe.
Yes.
March this year.
Yes, actually, if you sign up to the newsletter on our website, YouTooSpain.com, if you do that quickly, I will send you this month's newsletter, which I actually sent out last night for February. And it's got details of exactly what you need to do on that from Lucia Melgarejo, our financial advisor expert. So do that, and I'll kind of backdate you onto the subscriptions list, and I'll send you out a copy of that. Brilliant. Okay, so there's no more questions on there, I don't think. Oh, Rochelle says make a colour copy and laminate that, but keep the original in a safe place. Don't keep it in your wallet.
It's a good idea. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the police can. I mean, everybody, we talk about the being stopped and identified, for example, all the time. But in my experience, when people have been, because you've got an NIE number, they can identify you straight away. Which once when I got stopped in my car stupidly without my driving license because I've been to a race and I was driving and they just identified me using my it would have been my green card, I think, at the time, or something I had on me. Anyway, I didn't have my driving license on me. And they identified me straight away with my NIE number and just went, there you go, yeah.
Yeah, it's all linked in, isn't it?
And then we had a client who unfortunately was arrested, and they called me the copies of the documents, and they didn't even give me the originals. I just emailed the copies across, you know. So yeah, I mean, yeah, keep the original in a safe place.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. We have a laminator machine, so I should have done it by now anyway. Yeah, maybe I'll do that soon, as long as it doesn't, all the writing doesn't come off when I pull it out the wallet.
The main thing, I suppose, is taking a copy of your document the moment you get it.
Yeah, I think I've already got a copy.
So you print it off whenever you need it.
Yeah. Okay, so that would blow away over here, Chris. That's not the TIE card. That's your greenhouse.
Well,
he's talking about
going away here as well. I'll tell you, I'm a bit lost on where to put it. That's where I built it, but I don't know where to put it yet. We'll have a discussion on that today. It can't stay.
Yeah, if you put it around in the trees, protected somewhere.
Well, I've stupidly built it and then realised I can't get it up there.
Oh yeah, that's true. You won't get it through the gap, will you? In the
I should have built it
because you lift it above. Is it heavy?
No, not at all. No, it's very light sort of rods, and that polyurethane sort of thing goes over the top.
Okay.
So it can be moved. Like I carried that with Raoul on one arm because I can't use this one. So and it's very, 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 very light, and just needs pinning down. It's not like a solid greenhouse like you'd remember in the allotments in the UK years ago. You know.
Yeah.
I suspect that the plastic will probably last about a year. We'll have to get a new bit of plastic with it. You know.
No, I've seen some in Ireland that just during the storms just ripped apart all of the plastic, even though it was really strong plastic. And we've lost 2 or 3 gazebos, or at least they've ripped apart and the legs have bent because it's been tugged out. And I just saw there was a friend in town who just got delivery of a gazebo that's got a flat top and you can pull back the roof. So when because it's the roof that takes it and lifts everything and breaks everything. So I think that's got to be the next purchase when we start earning enough to do that. So that's a good idea.
It's the sun as well, isn't it? Because I mean, like we got some sun loungers, and the first lot we got were quite nice ones. Because we thought, they're strong, they're durable, you know, whatever. 1 year out in the sun, and it's absolutely nothing to do with the amount I eat. I just sat on it and it broke, you know. So, the second time round, I was like, "Have you seen them ones for 30?" Well, Lara saw them. Have you seen them ones for 30 euros in Carrefour? I said, "Yeah, we'll have them instead because they're probably going to last longer," you know.
Plastic ones, yeah. I think it's the only answer. We've got wooden ones that belong to the landlord, and they just went really pale and start. So Liz got onto it and with a friend and painted them all with stuff to protect them. But the covers, they got lovely, beautiful, reddy pink colour, deep kind of colour. Now they're almost white now because it's just faded everything.
The sun is brutal.
There you go. Oh, Craig Halliday says, already on the email list. There you go. Well, yes, no need to sign up again. And Lisa Hibbert says, glad we've got another year before we put in for our permanent TIE, as by then you will both have a good idea of what the permanent timing renewals date should be. And she feels for this year's permanent renewal people. Yes.
To mention about Lisa, because Lisa bought our meal after you got your positive cancer result, but we were trying to do a video on the platform and I couldn't work it out. So we have to say thank you, because it was Lisa who bought the menu of the day when we were celebrating your cancer result. Brilliant.
Yes, I did thank Lisa, I think, on one of my videos. So that's good.
I'm not sure if
Yeah. Excellent then. So, and John Carrington says, I lamented my green card. Do you mean laminate? It's still readable. The original is too faded to read. There you go now. I look forward to getting my new one next year then. So there you go. Oh, excuse me. Throat's gone. I hope that answers all of your questions for now. Feel free to ask any more follow-up questions. Everybody in the comments below. And just a quick piece of information that I always drop in at this point every week. Currency exchange rate. And from the point of view of UK people coming to the Eurozone, it seems to be rising again after it did a bit of a nosedive down to 1.17 a couple of weeks ago. And it was back up, when I looked at it yesterday, it was back up to around 1.19. So not quite at the 1.21 level that it reached a couple of months ago. It does mean that if you're planning to move or buy property in Spain in the next few months, make sure you safeguard yourself against any dangerous fluctuations, because you never know when it might plummet again. And you can fix a forward rate or even set your regular pension payments to be exchanged at the present rate for a year or two in advance if you want. And the company that I use and highly recommend is Smart Currency Exchange. And if you use the link in the video description below, you get a free account and free advice in your own personal broker. Give them a try. I love them. And we're going to have Jack Wiggs back on the show, I think in the next, sometime in the near future. And by using that link below, you'll actually be helping YouTooSpain as well at no cost to you. As we always say, it is a win-win-win with a great big cherry on top. There you go. So it's time for the frequently asked questions. We've got to move quickly through these. We've almost done an hour already, and we've still got to have an argument. We can't miss that out because it's a good one this week. We've not even told you what it's about, but stick around, you'll find out. Here we go. Let's have the jingle. FAQs just for you, but some of them might not be so frequent. Oh! Not that button, Skatz. Don't press that button. That's for later. Yes, here we go then. So, welcome to FAQs. We have three frequently asked questions this week. And the first one is one that was asked a little bit earlier. Is EPREM going to increase this year and affect how much savings or passive income you need for your visa or renewal?
Well, I'm glad I read The Economista this morning, because I was about to say they haven't declared it yet, but they have. Yes, basically, no, it's not going to go up. Now, the first sort of sign we got was last year. They published the figures before they made the announcement on the website, and they said it's going to be the same as the previous year, and that's happened again this year. So at the moment, no, it's not, which is great news. So I'll be doing a video on that as well. And everybody is used to seeing that lovely round figure.
Oh, 600 a month, yeah.
Yes, for a couple, it's 36,000 euros a year, and it stays around figure for a couple, and it's a lot easier to work out. So, yeah, EPREM is not going up. Yeah.
Kev the Argonaut says, EPREM, question mark? Just give the briefest of explanations what it is.
Indicador Público de Renta de Efectos Múltiples, which is basically what they use to calculate what people need to live on the non-lucrative visa and other residency platforms.
There you go then.
Which is a big hoo-ha. It's great for residencies, non-lucrative visas, etc., etc. It's great because everybody, we're basically frozen it now for 24 months. And inflation is going up, so it essentially makes it cheaper if you look at it that way. But it's not good for people who are receiving stuff like subsidies in Spain, because it is related really a lot to people who are receiving certain monies from the government, and if it doesn't go up, their money won't go up. And really, in theory, it should do if inflation's going up. So.
There you go. Al Davido says, we're going to need more information from you, but he says, I start my year 45 this month. Is the amount needed less than or more than 60k? So is that just solo, single person? It's more, isn't it? Even if you just...
well, it depends, David. If you're individual, no, it's 57,200 euros for an individual and 72,000 for a couple.
Oh, yeah.
In passive income or savings, or a combination of both, or depending on how many of those you've got, how much you make up. Yeah, but that's not going to go up either now.
Brilliant. Kev says, woohoo. And Mad David says, morning, chaps. You joined the party a bit late, but it's lovely to see you again. Now, equally, we need to answer the question, what are the new financial requirements for the digital Nomad visa? And I have that information in front of me. So that's only just been announced in the last couple of days. It's based on the Spanish minimum wage, el salario mínimo interprofesional, and the government has asked that it's raised from 1,134 per month in 2024 to 1,184 for 2025, backdated to the 1st of January. And as it's calculated as 14 payments a year, the annual amount will be 16,576, it says here, which represents an extra 50 euros a month on the basic minimum wage, which is a 4.4% increase, and that was confirmed on the 27th of January. So actually, let's just put these figures up on the screen, because it gives you the figures for the applicant and the second family member, and for a couple and each subsequent family member. So that'll be very helpful for some people. There we go. Oh, we've disappeared from the screen, but that's all right. We need to be there. There we go. So for the single applicant, 33,152, a monthly average 2,763. Second family member is you add 75%. And for a couple, then it's 45,584, and each subsequent family member is 4,144. Is that right? Yes. Monthly average of 345. I think that covers that.
That's a good wage for a couple. I could say they're considering people, they want people to go to small towns and populate them. You could get a lot of tappers for 45k a year, I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. Back to us again. And so, where are we? Shall we move on to... Let's just answer those two questions, actually. I was going to answer the question, what's important to do if you move out of Spain, but I think we should do a program about that.
Oh, yeah, we'll do a full video on that. And we can waffle on about that for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Not that we ever waffle, but...
Never go off topic. Greenhouses.
Never happens. Yeah, chilies. Now, so we're not taking a half-time break, obviously, because we're way past half-time. Let's move on to the extremely popular argument section of the show, where, we don't normally argue too much on the show, but so we like to get it all out of the way at the end of each show. So let's do the jingle for that. I hope this one works all the way through. Here we go. Chris says, Skatz says, Chris says, Skatz says, it's the big argument. Yes, there we go. Oh, Emma B says, morning lads from a sunny Lalfath del P. My savings are still in the UK for my upcoming NLV renewal. It's in an online account. So will an email from the company be enough? Will it need translating in apostille?
Won't need. It depends what sort of online account it is, really. Now, in the past, what we've seen until, shall we say, last year, is that the immigration just haven't accepted certain online accounts. You've had to put the funds into a Spanish account. That is what it is. But experience, as we say, last year we had a lot more success with online accounts, with statements that were generated online, because people just can't get stamped statements anymore. And depending on where you are, especially Alicante and Malaga, we've had a lot of success as long as you provide the right amount of statements, proper statements. So some online accounts only allow you to download one thing which looks like you've made it up yourself in a PDF, and a legal translation of that, and with we've had a lot of success. So yeah, what I would say is if you have got an online account, some, depending on what bank it is, will give you, like the Spanish do, they call it in Spanish a certificado de titularidad, which is a certificate of the, and in English it'd be the certificate of the title holders of the account. So it's a separate document that says this person from the bank has this account, blah, 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 and then attach statements to it. They won't need apostille, and in fact, unless it holds a signature, it's very difficult. You can't get apostilles, but you definitely would need to be able to verify the origin of the statement.
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the argument. Kev says, is this the 5-minute argument or the full half hour? Yeah, a bit of Monty Python for this morning. You can't beat it. So the argument is all about what's the best sport, or what's your favourite sport and why. Now, I know what you're going to say because I've heard you getting excited about Formula One. So tell us why it's the best.
Yes, Formula. I now, as I get older, I've always liked Formula One, but for the last 5 or 6 years, probably been watching it more vigorously. And certainly for me, the history of Formula One goes all the way back to the Alonso and Hamilton days when I was with my friends. That's how long Alonso's been around. You know, when I was in my early 20s, and I was with my friends who were Spanish, and suddenly Alonso burst onto the scene, and we had a good argument to have, because back then it was Alonso and Hamilton who were fighting it out, and it gave us something a lot better to argue about on the TV, you know. And ever since those days, and my family are quite into Formula One as well, I've been following it, and I completely disagree with people who say it's just cars going round and round and round and round. You know, because it's just that's rubbish. It's not. Evidently here we have, you know, Alonso, Sainz as well, and people do look at now the Spanish-speaking drivers, and it's become a bigger sport in Spain than it used to be. But to be honest, when one of the drivers aren't doing very well, everybody just sacks it off until they are doing well, then they watch it again. Whereas I'm a hardened fan, never miss a race, and quite often catch the qualifying most of the time as well.
Who's top of the table at the moment in the winners?
Nobody at the moment, because the season hasn't started yet. It starts in March. So
yeah, of course. It's early in the year, isn't it? Yeah.
It's early in the year. So at the moment, you've got Hamilton who's moved over to Ferrari, which is going to be very interesting, and still looks strangely weird every time you see him in a red suit. You know, and it's I think this year is not actually going to be as interesting in next year when we've got the regulation changes. But there's been an awful lot of movement with Formula One in the last year, with Adrian Newbury going to Aston Martin, and it's going to be a fantastic season. I can't wait this year. And I've never been to a Formula One race, and I would love to go to Barcelona this year if I could still get a ticket, but I've got to find a victim to go with.
I was watching Formula One back in the 70s when it was Jackie Stewart and people like that, and then through the 80s when loads of brilliant Ayrton Senna, of course, absolutely magical driver. I mean,
we've got one of our who I met through doing his residency is Joaquin Ramirez, who was Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost's boss in McLaren back in the day. And he's very nice. He's become like a friend, and he sent Lara a present for her birthday and stuff. And I went to his 80th birthday. There was a lot of interesting Formula One people at the 80th birthday, I can tell you that. And Chris Upsticks, you know. I surprised my dad by taking him to. He offered to, if I could take him. I said my dad's a huge fan, you know, because my dad thinks it's just amazing. And I said, can we come to your place? Because he's still got Ayrton Senna's suit there in his room. He's got the steering wheels from the Mansell days as well. Because when he was down in the pits, he used to go and get the steering wheels and keep them. He's got Ayrton Senna's steering wheel, Alan Prost's.
Wow.
He's got Nigel Mansell's. He's got about 20 steering wheels there. And obviously he's got his Ferrari in the garage and his Harley Davidson that they gave to him, which we helped to register once when he retired. So, yeah, he's an absolute legend, and I have to say, absolutely lovely guy as well.
Yeah, and it's good to have some great Spanish drivers throughout the years. Yeah. No, I mean, Alonso's done an absolutely amazing job for the sport in Spain. He put it on the map.
He has done. Yeah. No, my personal opinion now of Alonso, and I don't mind saying it, is he should give it up. I think you should give that seat now to a young driver. I think you've made your money, go into some sort of administrative role, but I don't think you should have signed for another 2 years. I think we need to encourage young sportsmen. I know he's going probably for more records, but I don't think it's fair. I think you need to give people a drive. Plus it's boring, more exciting. If you get somebody who's got whether you like it or not, a 19-year-old driver versus a driver of my age. Alonso, what you're doing, you just give it up. That's my opinion. I'm getting that way with Hamilton as well, to be honest with you, even though he's British. I'm like, come on, take your time. But
the British have got a really good history of drivers. So many.
Fantastic. And drivers are coming now. I mean, look at George Russell, who's my favourite driver because he's from Norfolk. So, I've got to like George Russell. But, Norris, amazing. And he's just and Norris has got even a bit of flair about him, which, he holds back in his interviews, sometimes swears. And you need that kind of young, you
do need the personalities, because you used to get so many arguments in some of the races where one of the cars would just touch the other one and then they'd both go off and then there was a punch up on the side of the track. So James Huntbury from Unitech says, the guy that everyone wanted to be when I was a kid. He was he was a great driver, not a particularly vibrant personality, but good looking and a good driver.
Good film. If you watch, what's it? Speed, is it? I can't remember the name of the film about James Hunt, but it was a good film. I remember watching that.
The one about Ayrton Senna is the documentary about him is fabulous.
Oh, incredible! Yeah.
The Kev says he was in Barcelona when Alonso won his first WDC.
Wow.
Yeah. And he says,
been in Spain when they won the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really Spain's golden time for several sports, isn't it? I mean, when we come on to my favourite sport in a minute, you'll see even more why. And Kev says, do you watch Lollipop Man, Chris? Well worth a look. It's a funny take on Formula One activity via cartoons. You might like that.
No, I'll have a look.
There you go. Anything more to say before I get stuck in? Because I've got a whole thesis about my favourite sport.
You go for it.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of tennis. Huge fan. I really could talk about this all day, even just about the big competitions. But I've done a summary because I did start writing something yesterday, and it was all in prose, and I just went on for hours and thought, it's just going to take up the whole show if I do this. So I'll put it down into little bullet points. So the setup of the sport, I mean, this is a little bit like Formula One. There's a big long season. There are kind of 4 major tournaments which last for 2 weeks each. They're called they're known as the Grand Slams, and that's knockout competitions. Plus, there's loads of the next level, smaller ones. They're not that much smaller, and the main players, the top seeds, tend to pick and choose between those ones. Prize money isn't as much, and they don't want to get too worn out because their major aim is to win as many Grand Slams as possible. And those records have been shattered in the last 5 or 6 years by the 3 big players, who've 2 of whom have now retired, but I'll come back to that. And there's apart from that, there's the Davis Cup, which has been held in Malaga for at least the last 2 years, and Rafa Nadal played his very last game of tennis there, very last game of professional tennis, because he said, I'm retiring after the Davis Cup. And we tried to get tickets for it. We got tickets for the year before in 2023, only 2 weeks before the competition started, and we got tickets for the final. But this year we had a look in mid-October and the thing had completely sold out, apart from a few games in the first round where Spain weren't playing. But tickets were going for 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 for people to sit in a game where Rafa Nadal wasn't there. So it was total madness this year. I'd love to have seen him play, but I'm sure he'll still play the odd exhibition match. And the other thing is the traditions, like you say in Formula One, that goes way back to I don't know, the early part of the 20th century, was it? I don't know when it all started, but there's been racing cars for quite a long time.
But Nadal is amazing. I mean, Nadal has put Kia Motors on the map. That's why there's so many. He's personally responsible for. There's so many Kia Sportages in Spain.
Yeah. That's all he has to do.
Nadal's got one. He's honestly, I think that Kia's biggest ever marketing move. It was Nadal.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
and it's not just because he's a good tennis player. He's such a likable bloke.
Yes.
And he's a bit like John McEnroe was back in the 1970s. He's a left-handed player and he throws himself around the course. Even if you think he's never going to get that thing, it looks like it's about 20, 30 feet away, but he hurls himself through the air, full stretch, and just, in danger of landing in the crowd sometimes, and still manages to get some of them back. But, and he has a laugh with the crowd. So he's just so popular. And he was even at the French Olympics with the torch. Well, everybody else was French. He was even at the French Olympics because he's a hero there. He's won 13 of the French Opens and they love him. It's almost like he's, an honorary Frenchman. So he's got the respect of so many countries. And I mean, the traditions behind it all go back to the 19th century. So Wimbledon started in 1877, and it's got this feeling of tradition and Britishness about it. Everybody has to wear white outfits, which does make it a bit confusing sometimes when you've got two players who look very similar on the camera, and you're going, and you've just turned the telly on and going, I can't tell which one's which until the commentators start to make it clear. But and there's so much respect. It's always been on the BBC, which is something that I think went wrong with Formula One. They took it from the BBC onto ITV. They had to put adverts in the middle of it, and it broke up the race a bit for me. And they did have Murray Walker was great, but he
need to have access to Sky, which isn't fair because it's a paid platform, and I do still believe it should be shown somewhere free.
Yeah.
BBC is licensed, I know, but I don't agree. Sticks one after the other, isn't it? It's a very capitalist sport which generates a lot of funding, hence why it's on a paid platform. But then I do believe that people should be able to watch it for free, like they do Wimbledon.
So you've got these 4 Grand Slams. You've got Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. And they're all fantastic competitions. We tend to watch more of Wimbledon and the French Open because it's in the sort of time period that you can watch. The Australian one is like 12 hours ahead, so it's happening in the middle of the night, and the American one is happening very late in the evening and into the night, or the day before or something, because they're behind. So anyway, there's that, and then there's the fitness of the players. I know racing drivers are particularly fit, especially in the neck, because they've got to have all of this G-force about them. But I think that tennis players must be some of the fittest sportsmen in the world because of the length of the matches that they have to play. And you're on your own out there. It's not like being a footballer where you've got a team. You might be running around a lot, but you're not always on the ball, literally on the ball, and you have to be aware of every single, and there's the mental attitude that you have to have towards that. You can't get any coaching during the game. You're there for, sometimes up to 5 hours at the top level, and it's not slow like cricket or baseball where you've got a massive gap in between each sort of hit of the ball, and they run around, and then it's like everything changes and there's music and stuff. There's only a short gap in tennis, and they've actually it's a timed gap, and you get penalised if you go over it. So players like Novak Djokovic, who is still kind of the champion at the moment. He's one of the 3 that hasn't retired yet. He bounces the ball just to get ready for his serve, and bounces it and bounces it and bounces it again, bounces it and bounces it and bounces it again, just to get him ready mentally and to give himself physically a bit of a rest, because he's in his late 30s now before he hits it. And there's lots of times when he's gone over the time limit just because he does, 20, 25 bounces of the ball before he hits it. But most players, like Nadal, would just go bounce, bounce, whack, and then serve it. And it's really exciting to watch those games, and it's relentless as well. It's like those table tennis games you get, the exhibition games, where they're all over the place and just playing these most impossible shots. Once you get through to the big final of a Grand Slam, and it's usually the top two players that get there because they make sure that throughout the rounds they put the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the different seeds on opposite sides of the table, so you're almost guaranteed to get 1 and 2, unless there's some kind of a giant killer comes in and who's not so good, but knocks one of them out, which makes it even more exciting. So it's like a gladiatorial sport, and I don't mean like gladiators on the telly. It's more like two warriors fighting it out. And I loved all of the different eras that there's been of tennis from, well, I don't remember much before this, but McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, two completely different personalities. There was Bjorn Borg, the Iceman, and McEnroe, always arguing and always shouting and always mean and having you cannot be serious and all that, and famous. And he kind of made the sport. You either loved that or hated it. I was kind of on the fence. Sometimes I agreed with him, sometimes I didn't. But I loved watching him play, and Bjorn Borg was my favourite at the time because he was just so cool. And there's always a group of players, sometimes just one or two, sometimes just one. When Pete Sampras ruled the roost for 7 or 8 years, I think, and he just seemed to be winning everything. But then there came this era which started in the early part of the millennium with these three amazing players. And so I can see some people saying who their favourite players are and the best players of all time. But there's no way that any of those players back through history at their best could beat any of the top three that have been around that were at their best, because the level of training is just more technical. They have ice baths, they have machines and technical stuff, they have things stuck to their body to measure various different things, they have dietitians so that they know they're getting the right nutrition, and the rackets are so much better, the technical game is so much better. So Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic dominated the sport. And there was only the occasional odd one other person that got through, like Andy Murray, who was fantastic and actually got to the number one spot for a little while as well. I think back in when the London Olympics was on, and he got a gold medal there, and he won Wimbledon finally, and he was the first male British player to win since Fred Perry. But I think it was Fred Perry, but it was like 73 years of. It's like the World Cup thing when we said, haven't won it for all these years, and he was the one. I mean, but there'd been women in British players who'd won it in the interim. So, which is, Andy Murray was very kind and gracious to say when people said, "Oh, you're the first British player to win it for 73 years," and you go, "No, there've been these women who've won it as well,"
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, at least Nadal also knew sorry, I'm getting attacked by flies here. Knew when to give up. It wasn't embarrassing. It's now's the time. And it's very honourable about it. I think there's nothing worse than having. I think sportsmen who go far too into their career, and I watched quite a bit of that, and I watched the interview with him as well. And he was just like, I'm not going to drag this out. I don't need the money as such. I would like to go into an ambassador's role, he said, something. And I took a lot of respect from his attitude towards retiring. I thought it was amazing.
And he is. He's a tremendous ambassador, just for the sport in general. And he's got his own training centre in Spain. which is fantastic, and that's where the new guy has appeared from, Carlos Alcaraz. He's just amazing, and John McEnroe, who commentates, is one of the best commentators I think on. Normally commentates for American TV, but he's always at Wimbledon commentating for the BBC because they absolutely love him. And he said that this, under 20s player is playing all of the shots and all of the style and all of the techniques that the three top players have been playing, and having their own individual styles. He's going to be playing better than any of them, all rolled into one. So he's this consummate champion, and also on all of the different surfaces as well, because at America and Australia they're playing an indoor place with a hard surface. In France they play on a clay surface where the ball gets mucky and moves sort of slightly slower, and at Wimbledon it's on grass, which is even more slow. So it's much more about the techniques and the spins, and you can quite easily fall over and break your ankle at Wimbledon if you're not careful, if the grass is slippery, and that happens a lot. But and he's just amazing, and it's great to see a resurgence after Nadal retiring. I mean, he was actually playing Nadal sometimes, and even in the Davis Cup it was Alcaraz and Nadal playing the doubles. That would have been fantastic to see.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm not the biggest tennis fan, but I mean, Formula One's obviously a lot better. But I do respect your argument.
I'd say the last thing to say is the sort of representation by women in the women's tennis. I don't want to leave the women's tennis out, because in the 70s I didn't find it that exciting, and it was a lot slower. It seemed to take ages for the ball to get over the net, and it wasn't the great thuds and smashes and everything that you got in the men's game even back then. But then Martina Navratilova appeared, changed everything. And they, alongside Billie Jean King, who was more of a 60s, 70s player, they've been ambassadors for sport and for women and for gay rights as well. And there's more recognition and acceptance for gay and lesbian players because of them. And they've been instrumental in pushing through equal pay for women in the sport, which I don't think has happened in many other sports at all.
No.
But in the Grand Slams, it's been 2007 is when they equalised the pay, which is amazing. And the WTA competition, which is a couple of levels down, they did that last year, I think. And the ATP, which is the one just below the Grand Slams, that's going to happen in 2027. So it's been a long, hard fight. And so that was my kind of last point on that. But I'll just point to one last bit. Andy Murray made such a difference as an ambassador for the sport in Britain, and loads of players have come up in the ranks through that. And off the top of my head, I can't remember. There's one called Norris, actually. There's a racing driver called Norris. So there's been so many more great tennis players coming up through the ranks in Britain, and the same is happening in Spain. So it's going to be a golden era for both countries, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think.
That's about enough. I don't think we'll come to an agreement on which one is best, because it's personal preference, isn't it?
We'll let the public decide.
Yeah. Let's have some comments here. Because there's a lot of chat being going on, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's Alonso, that's back to there. And Kev says, the only thing I know about tennis is with the current state of my teeth. I can eat it up through a tennis racket. Nice one. Barry says, I took the wife to Wimbledon in 2000. After leaving the bar, after getting some pims, I literally bumped into Jack Nicholson as we walked around the corner. And he apologised. I bet that was maybe slightly scary. You do get loads of famous people going to Wimbledon. I bet you do at the Formula One as well.
Yeah.
And sat behind Anthony Hamilton on Ryanair flight back to Stansted. Anthony Hamilton?
Yes, his dad, Hamilton's dad.
Ah, brilliant. And El Davido says the all-time best player is Rod Laver. He was brilliant. And he started in the era before professional tennis. It was amateur. Sometime 67, 68, I think it all changed and it became the professional game. Barry says we saw Tim Henman and Greg Rosetsky over 2 days. And his wife is a massive tennis fan as well as a massive Robbie Williams fan. Well, everybody's got their faults. And the highlight for Barry was watching Anna Kournikova on the practice court. Is that for the tennis or for something else? I don't know. There have been, yeah. And after Navratilova, there seems to be so many players from Eastern Europe coming through who have. If you look at the winners on the Wimbledon, they've got a big board saying who's won it each year, and it's so many Eastern European names, some of which I still have difficulty remembering or pronouncing. But yeah, there's been some brilliant players. And then the Serena Williams, didn't even mention her. I remember when her big sister Venus Williams started to appear and started to win competitions. Yeah. And the interviewers were saying, you know, do you see over the next? Do you see yourself as a champion going through for? And and she said, you don't want to be watching me. You want to be looking at my little sister. And she was only 16 at the time. Just amazing. Yeah, and they're ambassadors for the sport, and they've brought more black people playing tennis, and they've got tennis courts for, you know, and more sport over there in the US. Which is brilliant, and there doesn't seem to be anyone who's as strong as those two. They've got guns, literally got guns like the blokes. Shoulders are absolutely incredible, and they were trained by their dad. So.
Incredible.
Just shows
good film as well. Watch that film. It's a good film.
Oh yeah, it's worth a watch. So, any more comments? Get your comments in there before we say goodbye at the end of the show, and click on that like button. And unfortunately, that is all the time we've got for this week. We've done an hour and a half already. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and join me and Chris every 2 weeks for more expert advice about the new residency rules. We'll get back to that, I think, in 2 weeks, shall we?
Yes, I think so. We'll get back to that and we'll get on to I think we'll probably go for non-loop. Have we done non-loop to visa for ages, have we yet? So we'll probably go back on to that, I think. What do you think? Update.
Yeah. I think that was the one we were going to do, and then we got interrupted by several important things like housing plans and things like that. So don't forget to miss the shows in between mine and Chris's show. So I'll tell you in a moment who your special guest will be. Special guests this time will be next week. But for now, let's give Chris a virtual hug and a kiss and say goodbye for now. So, who do I have on next week? Well, I've been looking to do this show for a few months now. I'm calling it the End of Life Show, which sounds a bit dark, but it's really important. It's the sort of thing that we have to all face. And it's to give you an idea of the forward planning you need to do when considering things like inheritance and wills and funeral plans. So yes, very important. And my guests will be the lovely Ruth Forder from Compare Funerals and our inheritance and wills specialist, Fran the lawyer. So join our Facebook group, by the way, if you haven't already, where you can ask questions in advance and be part of the show, whether you're watching live or not. But watch if you can live, and you can respond and wave and feel like you're a part of it too, and kind of continue a conversation. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Let's see if there's any final comments before we go. There's a lot about wooden tennis rackets. Yes, Jacques Villeneuve, when he dyed his hair blue. He was called Mrs. Slocum that weekend. Yes. And Anton Kesse, 27 viewers, 30 thumbs up. Bravo. Yes, fun show. Have a great week, guys. Thank you, yes, to all of you there for joining us, leaving comments, hitting the like button and supporting us with donations. Yes, don't forget the donations in the top corner. That really helps us. It's very much appreciated. Or you can do memberships. Thanks to anybody who's hovered over that or who's done a kind of membership thing or pressed the little $ sign down there and donated. That's That's how we keep going, and how you can help us to help you. I'll see you either on the midweek video. I have no idea what that's going to be about. We usually take something absolutely current, or the podcast on Still Alive on Friday evening at 6, or live on Saturday mornings at the regular time of 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe, or 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland, Portugal, the Canaries, those kind of places. And that is all for this week. Someone pass around the withdrawal agreement cookies. Peace and love, peas and fluff. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head at YouTooSpain. Bye for now.
Wave goodbye,
See you
lads.
soon.
Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.